dating safety app has put users at risk. A Microsoft Cloud vulnerability is tearing through the web. Proton has released their own AI chatbot and more. Welcome to Surveillance Report 234, where we are dedicated here to the latest news from the past week. I am Nathan from The New Oil.
And I'm Henry from TechLore.
This week, our sponsor is NT, the zero-knowledge cross-platform photo management app that has all of the features you would expect. And if you would like to learn more about them, you can use our link to let them know that we sent you, which is nt.sh/surveillance report. With that, we will jump into our highlight story. This one is very last minute, so if by the time you're watching this, there is already new information, I apologize. But there is an app called T, and it is purported to be a women dating safety app, and it has been breached, exposing user IDs, pretty much a worst case scenario, but user IDs, selfies, all kinds of stuff, and they've been posted to 4chan. So users from 4chan claim to have discovered an exposed database hosted on Google's mobile app development platform Firebase, which belongs to the newly popular women's dating safety app T. Users say they're rifling through people's personal data and selfies uploaded to the app and then posting that data on posts and code reviewed by 404 Media. The original post includes a photo of 4 women's driver's licenses that the user said they redacted, but the comments in the thread indicate that there were many more photos of users safe and verifies that new users are women by asking them to upload a selfie. In its terms of use, T says when you first create an account, we ask that you register by creating a username and including your location, birthday, photo, and ID photo. T launched back in 2023, but this week skyrocketed to the top of the Apple App Store. The app lets women anonymously post photos of men along with stories of their alleged experiences with them and ask others for input. It has some similarities to the Are We Dating the Same Guy Facebook group that 404 Media has previously covered. In the last hour or so, that page was locked down and now returns a permission denied error. At the time that we're recording, this is a free article from 404. You do have to log in to view it, but other than that, you shouldn't have to pay for it. That's kind of the meat and potatoes. The rest of it is basically, as much as I love 404, it is kind of repeating itself, and it's just talking about the different posts they've seen, the people they've talked to about this. Okay, so first, the obvious elephant in the room. It is so frustrating and ironic that this app has one job, which is to keep women safe from crappy men. And now it is, because of the app itself, it is directly putting women in danger from crappy men. I've been so frustrated today. I don't know if I have the energy to be for a rant, but I honestly don't know how much I can say without going off on a rant and pissing off half the people. Like, it would be nice if we lived in a world where apps like these weren't needed, where men could just behave themselves, but here we are. It's still unfortunate that somebody felt the need to make an app like this in the first place, and it's unfortunate that these women are now put at risk, especially the ones who maybe were genuinely trying to make sure they're not like married or, serial cheater or something. I have to wonder if I'm reading this correctly. This was basically a database that had no password. You could just pull up the IP address and log into it. At what point do these people wake up and say, I see a problem, I can make the world a better place, and I'm not going to put any effort into security? I'm not a developer, but I feel like putting a password on your database is like the bare minimum of making an app secure. And it blows my mind that these people just cannot do the most basic things. And again, I don't know, I think I'm tripping up over the fact that, again, like I said at the start, their whole purpose is to keep women safe from harassment and terrible people. Like, I'm going to make an app whose whole job is not to shoot you in the head. Oh no, there's a bug, and now the app shoots people in the head. So this is a really big story right now. Unfortunately, I'm not sure I have a lot of advice here, because first of all, it's already happened. And like, I don't believe in telling people told you so or shoulda, like, I mean, obviously there is a bit of a postmortem and like, here's what you should do differently. But I mean, in terms of like, if you're someone who's impacted by this and you're watching this video because you're like, oh my God, what do I do about it? I'm not sure you have a lot of options other than maybe like setting your profiles to private, maybe logging off the internet for a little while, just kind of waiting for 4chan to get bored and move on. I don't know that there's much you can do, especially when things like your address have been posted there. Like, you can't just pick up and move. And yes, you could sign up for a data removal service, which we highly recommend. Easy Opt-outs does sponsor the podcast, but you can't make them forget that data. I've actually seen this in another space this week of somebody who believes that their home was broken into, which I don't know if that was true or not, but it's like, okay, if they broke into your home, why can't they forget where your house is? Like, they've been in your house. I guess I don't want to sound like a victim, but in terms of actionable takeaways from this, be mindful. We've said this before on the podcast. Anything you put in a digital medium, so be mindful when you're uploading photo IDs. A passport card does not have your address. It has your name, your date of birth, it doesn't have your address. A lot of companies you black out name and your address, something like maybe we just want to verify your age or so. Kind of questions, see what's optional. Definitely another thing we're a big across the internet because then that makes it easier for people to find you. So, /username and facebook.com/username. That way, we still do recommend data removal services, opt-out search engines like PimEyes that do reverse people search. They can find all your social media and stuff. Try not to accept DMs or text messages from strangers. If you really are in that severe of a situation, maybe consider changing your phone number or moving. Voice over IP is another good tool to use online to kind of have separate phone numbers for things so it doesn't spill over so much when these kind of things happen. Because I know right now changing my work phone number would suck. I'm not going to lie. I don't know. I feel like I was a little all over the place. Did I miss anything?
Oh, that's a good question. It's difficult, right? Like situations like this, and this really is what it comes down to. If you have to upload an address to a service and you have to assume the service goes through a data breach, will you feel compelled to have to move in the event that your address is leaked? It's a really important question for people to ask because if you're, the Coinbase recently had a hack where they leaked user addresses. So if you're storing millions of dollars through Coinbase and then your address gets leaked and it's where you live, then that's probably a situation where you're going to say, oh shit, yeah, I should move after this data breach. So maybe I should either be more proactive about this, maybe use a service that doesn't require an address, etc. Like you have to be a bit more proactive about this kind of stuff. And same thing in a situation like this, when you're using these dating services and stuff like that, you really should be thinking about what you're uploading. I was trying to do a bit of research because this is something I've seen. Some services allow you to upload redacted IDs. Like you can upload your driver's license, but you don't have to show everything, but it's super ambiguous. Like you're probably going to get flagged for every service that you upload to. They're going to say, hey, we need the full document. Then you have to go back and forth and see, well, what do you need in the document? So it's not the cleanest solution. This is one of the worst stories for the internet to try to handle because it tugs on every possible string of nuance. Like there's the nuance of should women have their own safe space? Are the safety tools on regular platforms good enough for women? Already having to have that discussion. And then there's the discussion of, okay, so are the women on this platform justified on being in this platform? And then it's too many layers of nuance for the internet. And so what I'm seeing a lot of on Twitter over this is just a bunch of butthurt guys posting photos of the women going, ha ha ha, not so funny now, huh? And it's like, well, you're kind of proving why this service existed in the first place, ironically.
It's literally what I was thinking. Thank you for saying that.
Yeah, so it's kind of funny. Like I feel like everyone is just being insanely ironic about the whole situation, regardless of where they stand, because the situation has a lot of nuance. Anyway, I think it's interesting. This app, so I can't really tell you. I'm sure this app was really like, but all I can say is that the data breach sucks. And is using to have a data breach, and this is one of the more data breaches that we've come across in terms of like the data breaches. An adoption agency revealed about children and parents. This is also inherently sensitive. Being talked about, it includes deeply personal info about adoptive parents, other caregivers, about adoption. So the data included more personally identifiable information information like names, addresses, phone numbers, email addresses, and unique identifiers assigned to children's cases. The person who discovered this Fowler returned the data to Gladney because it also contained information about some. They say that the data appeared to be from a customer relationship management that is used to organize client data in businesses and other million records and was 2.5 gigabytes. And he said, quote, I believe that that was up for a few days, end quote. So if you are in any way related to the Texas-based Gladney Center for Adoption, this is definitely a story to look into.
So every time we miss a week, there's always a million stories. So we're going to try to blow through the can. Hopefully this next one's really quick. Major European discloses security breach. This is AMEOS. It's a Zurich-based healthcare provider that employs thousands of staff in over 100 hospitals, clinics, rehab centers, and nursing homes located across Switzerland, Germany, and Austria. The investigation is still underway, so basically we don't really have any details at this time. AMEOS has promised to update providers as new information becomes available. So if you have ever used one of their hospitals, we will do our best to keep you updated if we hear more, as always. But definitely contact them. Keep an eye on your email or your phone, and hope information.
And then we have a luggage services web bugs that expose the travel plans of their, including diplomats. So researchers are from a firm called Found Bugs, and the website's called Airporter. I've never heard of this website, but pretty much it allowed to access all the user's personal information, including their travel, or even gain admin privileges that would have allowed a hacker to redirect or steal luggage in transit. Among even the small sample of user data the researchers reviewed and shared Wired, they found what appeared to be the personal information and travel records of multiple government officials and diplomats from the UK, Switzerland, and the US. The researchers say they could also have used their access to emails and text messages as an airporter, which is a potential phishing attack. The CEO did confirm in a written statement, and they disabled a vulnerable part of the backend shortly after they were made aware of it. CyberX9's researchers, for their part, counter that the simple vulnerabilities they found mean that there's no guarantee other hackers didn't hack reporters' data first.
I'm going to take the next two because they're very similarly related. They both concern fashion brands. So for Louis Vuitton says that there were several regional data breaches that were all part of the cyber attack. Confirmed that there was a data breach impacting the Syria and Turkey, that which is believed to be linked to the Shiny Hunters extortion group. This impacted members' email address, mailing address, date of birth, purchases, and quote-unquote preference. They confirmed that no payment information was compromised during the incident. Who is a brand, and they are also part of LVMH, which is the world's conglomerate. They are now sending data breach notifications to U.S. customers. This occurred in May, and it impacted full names, contact details, physical address, date of birth, passport or government ID numbers in some cases, and in some cases, social security numbers. If you bought from them recently, keep an eye.
The next couple stories, a cybercrime forum called LeakZone publicly exposed its users' IP addresses. They exposed a database to the internet without a password. The exposed database contained more than 22 million records storing the IP address and precise timestamp of when LeakZone users logged in. The records were dated as recently as June 25th, and the database was updating in real time. And in the last data breach, UK retail giant Co-op confirms hackers stole all 6.5 million customer records. This is just official confirmation. We think we've covered this one already on this podcast, but the hackers copied the company's member list of 6.5 million members, but Co-op shut down its network of the ransomware. The members' data includes names.
Oakley dokley, that'll take us into companies. There is a big vulnerability going around making news in a software called SharePoint. This article comes from Ars Technica. It says what to know about ToolShell, the SharePoint threat under mass exploitation. Part of this article to you guys, and hopefully what's going on, you hearing about it, this will get you up to speed. So the articles in private industry have been under siege for the past 4 days following the discovery that a critical vulnerability in SharePoint, the widely used document sharing app made by Microsoft, is under mass exploitation. The fallout and the ever-increasing scope of the attacks have been hard to keep track of. So SharePoint is a server software that companies use for storing, managing, sharing, and collaborating on internal documents. In 2020, Microsoft said as of last year, more than 400,000 customer organizations use the software, including roughly 80% of Fortune 500 companies. The vulnerability enables unauthenticated remote code execution on servers running damage it causes and the ongoing targeting of it in the wild. very 9.8 out of a possible 10. We say this week. I'm condensing the quotes for the article. The article, I think, does actually go into developer or just a really techie person who wants to know more, but I'm keeping it very surface level. So it was first spotted on Saturday by iSecurity, E-I-E. The security firm for the vulnerability has been actively exploited 2 ways starting a day earlier and had already compromised dozens of systems around the world. iSecurity raised the estimate to 400 compromised systems on Wednesday. Bloomberg reported that the U.S. National Nuclear Security Administration's net was among the casualties. On Tuesday, Microsoft said that it unearthed evidence showing that active exploitation began no later than July 7th, meaning it was exploited as a 0-day before Microsoft defenders knew of the threat. The vulnerability affects only SharePoint system customers run internally inside their organizations. There is no threat to users of Microsoft's cloud-based SharePoint service. Microsoft said it observed active exploitation for 3 separate groups, all of which are connected to the Chinese government. 2 of the groups were already known. One of them, tracked as Linen Typhoon, performs espionage for property. The second is Violet Typhoon, which traditional forms of espionage. And the third group is now being tracked, Storm 2603. Microsoft said it knew little about the group other than it had been linked to some attacks in the past. Ruled out the possibility that other groups are possibly from different governments or private crime syndicates. So this was originally discovered at Pwn to Own in Berlin in May. The researchers who discovered it called it tool shell because they are able to exploit toolpaint.aspx, which is a component for assembling the side panel view in SharePoint user interface. Just in case anyone was curious, you'll see that name pop up from time. It's 2 vulnerabilities changed. So Microsoft fixed the vulnerability a pair of weeks ago as part of the company's monthly update release. As the world learned over the weekend, the patches were incomplete, a lapse that opened organizations around the world to new attacks.
We'll cover the next 2 because the first one is somewhat of a nothing burger so far. Chrome OS is combining with Android, but what does that mean? And let me tell you, listeners, we don't need because all we have is vague quotes from still isn't being very clear about what it means. And the most that we have is that take on more desktop-like capabilities. Kind of initial response to that is iPadOS is mostly still to this day just blown up iOS with a little bit better multitasking. So I'm not quite sure what this is supposed to be yet, but we'll follow it closely. And when we actually have real information, we'll be sure to cover it with the podcast. And then the next story, I'm also going to try to keep a little bit more brief. The best Bay Area restaurants are vetting your social media before you even log in. A Bay Area meeting in California for one guest who was visiting Lazy Bear on her birthday for the 3rd straight year. That was a penguin enthusiast. Wanting to honor this personal yet quirky detail, the restaurant staff went all out. They got a real penguin chick for her. Pretty much questionnaire to each reservation. She then dives into they can find publicly about them, and it pretty much is possible. As well as a 2 Michelin star, not called Aquarello. Research is a bit more old school. The data collection for them started 36 years ago. We don't rely so much on social media as what they say. Director of operations system through each reservation, so they kind of just use a historical. And Zuckerberg reached a settlement to end $8 billion trial. Zuckerberg and the current and former directors of Meta Platforms agreed on Thursday to settle claims seeking $8 billion for damage that they allegedly caused the company by allowing repeated violations of Facebook users' privacy. The party did not disclose details of the settlement. Billionaire venture capitalist market to testify on Thursday because he was defended in the trial, and director, shareholders of Meta sued Zuckerberg, Andreessen, and other former company officials, including former chief operating officer Sheryl Sandberg, in hope holding them liable for billions of dollars in fines and legal costs the company paid in recent years. The FTC fined Facebook $5 billion in 2019 after finding that it failed to comply with a 2012 agreement with the regulator to protect users' data. Shareholders wanted the 11 defendants to use their personal wealth to reimburse the company. The defendants denied the allegations, which they called extreme claims. Zuckerberg was expected to take the stand on Monday and Sandberg on Wednesday. The trial was scheduled to run through the end of next week, which I think is this week, actually. The case was also expected to include testimony from former Facebook board members Peter Thiel and Reed Hastings, who is the co-founder of Netflix. The settlement allows plaintiffs to avoid a very difficult case. Investors completely failed to oversee the company's compliance in 2012 after the scandal, basically, which is a
defunct political consulting firm.
And then the last company news, nonprofit run by its co-founder. So some context here, 23andMe is like, oh yeah, we're going to sell our data to someone. Who's it going to be? And, we covered a different person who was likely. And they're like, oh, okay, actually our co-founder is going to firm itself. And now the data's been sold to a profit run by its co-founder. You know what? If you're more interested in this,
The one thing we should throw in there is basically the privacy policy is not any better than 23andMe's was originally. So that's kind of the concern there. This next one is our first research story. Humans can be tracked with a unique fingerprint base signals. So researchers have developed a way to create a biometric identifier for people based on the way the human body interferes with Wi-Fi signal propagation. The scientists claim this identifier, a pattern derived from Wi-Fi channel state information, or CSI, can re-identify a person in other locations most of the time when a Wi-Fi signal can be measured. Observers could therefore track a person as they pass through signals sent by different Wi-Fi networks, even if they're not carrying a phone. The core insight is that a Wi-Fi signal propagates through an environment. Its waveform is altered by the presence of physical characteristics of objects. This form of CSI contain rich biometric information. In the context of Wi-Fi, it refers to information about the amplitude and phase of the electron, and the measurements interact with the human body in a way that results in person-specific when processed by a neural network data signature.
this is an update to another also, which is CrowdStrike, which we go into it. And this is pretty much just, I would say this is a recap of something that's already happened. So as people and learn a little bit more about it. The headline is CrowdStrike outage. Now, for those who don't remember, CrowdStrike was what happened. It was pushed on Microsoft Windows operating systems that caused truly to have to be on a delayed flight and stuck in Troy. Thing. Thank you, Delta. Now, exposed parts of the crisis, they detected that at minimum 7 hospitals in the U.S. appear to have experienced network disruption of some kind. And 200 of those hospitals seem to have been hit specifically with outages. Some researchers are pretty much saying this could have caused significant public. This came from a UCSD study criticized and their decision to publish it, calling the paper. They note that to verify that the disrupted network ran Windows or CrowdStrike. That Microsoft Cloud Service and responsible for the hospital network. Stand by their findings, and the outage that CrowdStrike noted, they pointed out, began the previous night and affected mostly the central U.S., while the outages roughly pretty much trying to clarify between the issues. Some other cool stuff from the study, they tried to roughly the downtime of the hospital services affected by the outage, and they found that mostly about 58% of the hospital services were back online within more than 48 hours to work. I'm actually glad you mentioned Delta again, because I do have one thing to add. CrowdStrike is the cybersecurity company that makes a third-party tool, just to clarify, because the way you worked earlier, people might get the wrong impression. The name of the CrowdStrike is the company. They pushed an update that did not play nice with Microsoft, bricked everything. Delta, I should have put this in the company section. I didn't. Delta plans to use AI in ticket pricing, draws fire from U.S. lawmakers. But basically, to kind of give you a recap, Delta is going to start using AI to predict, quote, the amount people are willing to pay for the premium products related to the base fares, unquote. Delta added that dynamic pricing has been used for more than 3 decades, in which price fluctuates based on a variety of factors like overall customer demand, but not a specific customer's personal information. Delta said AI technology for dynamic prices is being tested to eliminate the manual process, accelerating analysis. Honestly, I just picked up part of the article and started reading. For a while, look up surveillance pricing. It almost started to become a mainstream issue like a year or 2 ago. And then people are starting to dip their toes in it. They're starting to add the process. They're going to use user data and they're going to personalize this. And on that note, I'm going to start off with good news. The UK is backing down backdoor after the US. So Keir Starmer's government is seeking a way out of a clash with the Trump administration over the Apple provided with access to secure customer data. Officials the Financial Times. Both officials said the UK decision to force Apple
top officials in the U.S. administration could yes. Time the Home Office continues to pursue its case with Apple, reflecting the divisions within government over how best to not back down, said one person familiar with the process.
To stay in the UK, to public organizations from paying ransomware games. So one of the things that's overall considered a good thing to help actually ban people from paying ransomware. Gangs prevents people from actually doing these in the first place because people are less likely to pay. Decided to plan to ban public sector and critical ransomware attacks. This includes local councils, schools, and the public interest. The ban itself, people to notify the government if they intend to make a ransom payment, seeking guidance on whether such payments could violate laws regarding transfers to sanctioned cybercriminal groups, many of them based in Russia. A mandatory reporting system is also being developed by law enforcement with essential information to track down attackers and support the victims.
I'm going to combine the next few because they're all closely related. The main one says Reddit's UK users must now prove they're 18 to view adult content. Reddit announced today, and this is almost a week ago, I think, Reddit announced today that it has started verifying UK users' ages before letting them view certain mature content in order to comply with the country's online safety act. Reddit said it contracted with the company Persona, which, quote, performs the verification on either an uploaded selfie or a photo of a government ID. Reddit will not have access to the uploaded photo, and Reddit will only store your verification status along with the birth date you provided, so you won't have to re-enter it each time you access restricted content. Unquote. Reddit said that Persona made promises about protecting privacy of the data. Persona promises not to retain the photo for longer than 7 days and will not have access to Reddit data such as the subreddits you visit. Your birthday is never visible to other users or advertisers and is used to support the safety features and age-appropriate experiences on Reddit. Reddit provided more detail on how the age verification works in post and a list of what content is restricted. For UK users under 18, Reddit says that it has to restrict sexually explicit content, content that promotes suicide, deliberate self-injury, and eating disorders. Abuse or hatred against people based on characteristics that promotes violence or depicts real or serious violence against a person, an animal, or fictional creature, content that promotes challenges or stunts that are likely to cause serious injuries, content that encourages people to use harmful substances or substances with harmful qualities, content that shames people based on type of features, and content that promotes or romanticizes despair. Proton tweeted, quote, just a few minutes after the Online Safety Act went into effect last night, Proton VPN signups originating in the UK surged more than 1,400%. And then a related story, I believe this came from Reuters, said that 5 EU states to test age verification apps for children. That's France, Spain, Italy, Denmark, and Greece. Will test a blueprint for an age verification app to protect children online. The setup is built on the same technological specifications as the European Digital Identity Wallet, which will be rolled out next year. The 5 countries can customize the model according to the requirements, integrate into a national app, or keep it separate.
Okay, so the UK has a research program for external experts from the UK's National Center. They announced to strengthen relations with external cybersecurity experts, and that's internal vulnerability research on a wide range of technologies. We will continue to do so. This will create a parallel program designed to discovery and sharing of critical insights with the community more expeditiously. If you're interested in joining us, learning more, you can check notes, and also there is an email that you can reach out to at ncsc.gov.uk with your skills and your focus area, and maybe podcast to actually might be able to contribute to this. So if you're in the UK, you want to maybe be part of something, then go ahead and check that out.
Now we're going to the US. First up, we have Inside ICE's supercharged facial recognition app of 200 million images. 404 Media is talking about how ICE officers are able to point their smartphone's camera at a person and near instantaneously run their face against a bank of 200 million images, pulling up their name, date of birth, nationality, unique identifiers such as their alien number, and whether an immigration judge has determined they should be deported from the country. The app represents an unprecedented linking of government databases into a single tool, including from the State Department, Customs and Border Protection, or CBP, the FBI, and state records. It also includes the potential for ICE to later add commercially available databases that contain even more personal information on people inside the U.S. This is quoting David Moss from the Electronic Frontier Foundation. This app shows that biometric technology has moved well beyond just confirming someone's identity. In the hands of ICE officers, it's becoming a way to retrieve vast amounts of data about a person on demand just by pointing a camera at their face. The more they streamline its use, the more they streamline its abuse. When an officer says paper, please, you could choose to say nothing and face the consequences. Facial recognition, your options are diminished. End quote. Beyond contactless fingerprints, it says the app allows officers to run remote identity contactless facial images using their isolation iPhones. The means that mobile may soon include data from currently LexisNexis. That's kind of suggesting that they would like to add in the US, which expired from threats of American structure. It expired Sunday. Monday, this prevents the Lawrence Liberty cyber century. It's managed by CISA. And includes structure actually expressed along the lines of change. There's a lot more information in the show notes, but the long story short is the shutdown this program, and the CEO Robert Lee testified, "Let me be blunt, we are not prepared for a major critical infrastructure. We are not doing enough to prepare, and this will be catastrophic, including loss of life." The DHS nor CISA responded, the funding, and if it would be renewed when they receive responses. The article shares one success story from 2022 as a result of the program. If fiasco sounds familiar, it should, and this is from the article. What happened with the Common Vulnerabilities and Exposures, the CVE program. The U.S. discontinued funding for MI grant before a very last-minute U-turn and promising another 11 months. It comes from Russia. It says the new Russian law criminalizes online searches for controversial content. The new measures, which sailed through the Russian parliament and will take effect in September, envision finding people who deliberately search knowingly extremist materials and gained access to domains such as VPNs. Russia defines extremist materials as content officially backed by to a government-maintained registry, which is a running list of about 5,500 entries or content produced by extremist organizations ranging from the LGBT movement to Al-Qaeda. The new law covers materials that promote alleged Nazi ideology or incite extremist actions. Until now, Russian law stopped short of punishing individuals for seeking information online, only creating or sharing such content is prohibited. The new amendments follow remarks by high-ranking officials that censorship is justified in wartime. Adoption of the measures will mark a significant tightening of Russia's already restrictive digital laws. The fine for searching for banned is $5, while the penalty for advertising circumvention tools is $100 for individuals and up to $12,800 for companies. Quote from the Internet Free Act. Say the fines for searching for extremist materials in this iteration may be minor. Pressure of intense words. I am most afraid the next iteration of administrative fines will be turned into a criminal case. The new amendment was introduced Tuesday and attached to a mundane bill on regulating freight companies. Lawmakers have repeatedly quietly inserting repressive measures into dormant, previously introduced bills. It allows them to accelerate the legislative process, moving through a second and third reading a single day and to avoid public scrutiny that comes from net freedoms and advocacy group. One of the senators and one of the bill's authors told state-controlled news agencies that the new measures are not intended to punish individuals for accessing prohibited websites such as VPNs. They said that reading Facebook or scrolling through Instagram does not constitute an administrative offense. The main focus is on regulating providers. There is no plan for mass punishment of users. Russian internet activists have warned that the vague language of the amendment creates significant potential for misuse. It also remains unclear how regulators intend to monitor search queries or enforce the rules. NetFreedom said that telecom operators and Russian platforms such as VK, which are already obligated to store your username with law enforcement, could be asked to turn over such information. User search activity can also be exposed to unprotected public Wi-Fi networks, search engine histories, or data stored on devices, such as browser logs and auto entries. All right, and now we're going to go into the open source boss, and we're going to start with a spicy one, maybe. Introducing Lumo, the AI where is confidential. So this is from Proton. They said, quote, "We believe the benefits of miss risks too serious to ignore. Whether we like it or not, AI is here to stay, but they're past. That's why we built Lumo, the private AI assistant that only not the other way around, with no locks kept and every chat encrypted. Keeps your conversations confidential and your data fully under your control. Never share older stolen. You can try out Lumo for free. You don't even need an account. You can just set lumo.proton.me. That's lumo.proton.me. You can also download an app. In addition to Lumo has no data sharing. It's not AI. And it uses language models based in Proton. It's not merely a proxy like that. Other features are ghost mode, which is like incognito mode, so you can chat when you're done.
can toggle on web search. You can do file uploads, and just I was able to test. It doesn't even support images. It doesn't support
files.
It doesn't support Proton docs, and I guess yes, also about PDF. But actually, there was which is super interesting because it's a pretty massive and covered in this podcast. How Switzerland is less friendly towards privacy and security. Proton are very proudly Swiss, but this of legal uncertainty around Swiss government proposals to introduce mass surveillance, proposals that are outlawed in the EU. Proton is moving most of its physical infrastructure to Switzerland. Lumo will be the first product to move. So Lumo is actually servers in the EU. So it seems like Proton is committed to move over a lot of their service to European data centers in the EU for the next 5 or 6 years. So this is a very massive shift for Proton.
Our next one is good news. Brave blocks Microsoft recall by default. And I'm going to quote selected pieces here. We will disable it by default for Windows 11 users with a toggle to turn it back on for users who really want recall. How we implemented this, Microsoft has said the private browsing window on browsers will not be saved as snapshots. We've extended that logic to apply to all Brave browse windows. We tell the operating system that every Brave tab is private, so recall never captures. For more technical details, see the GitHub issue for this feature. That is a link to the issue. And the toggle is both in the settings or the flags. So either way that you want to turn it on, if for some reason you want to disable it, you can do that in the GUI settings, or you can use the flags if you're more comfortable with that. Okay, if you're like me, and every time I go to take a screenshot, if I have Signal, it just instantly disappears. And that's fine because I'm not trying to take a picture of Signal, but I do some Brave time. So if you're like crap, that will actually not be a thing because the way that they did it. So that's good news. Now I wanted to go ahead and read this last paragraph because I liked it. It says, we were partly inspired by Signal's blocking of recall on browser apps regularly disable recall. Signal cleverly uses this breaks recall, but unfortunately also breaks the ability to take any screenshots, including by legitimately accessible software such as screen readers. Price approach does not have this limitation since we're able to regularly disable just with regular screenshotting. While Microsoft recognizes that web browsers, especially privacy, hope they offer the same granular ability to turn off recall to all privacy-minded application developers.
Next one is pretty exciting. Linux has grown percent desktop market share in the US, 5.03% to be specific. The article credits the growth to a few reasons, which is Windows sucking, Steam Deck, and Linux getting better, especially in terms of friendliness and risks of privacy concerns and lengthening older hardware. One thing I really liked about this, they put the journey of Linux in a really interesting light that I haven't seen before. They claim that it's accelerating because it took 8 years to go from 1 to 2%. And then it took 2.2 years to reach 3%, and then just 0.7 years to get 4%. Now we're at 5% in the US. So the exponential growth suggests that we're on a promising upward trend. If that continues, then perhaps we might hit 99% in a few years.
Our next story comes from IVPN, who has launched MailX in beta, which is an audited open source email aliasing service. So the following features are available in MailX beta. You can create managed email aliases. You can use one or more recipients for forwarded emails. You can instantly create new aliases on the fly with wildcard aliases. You can protect content statistics. Planned in Q3 and Q4 this year are additional domains available for aliases, logs for issues, domain options, and bulk import and export aliases. First, anyone can inspect the code. There's a clear privacy policy. A proactive audit from Cure 53. The results are available in the article. They conducted the audit over 8 days in May of this year. 1 critical, 3 high, 1 medium, and 1 low, and 1. All vulnerabilities have been remediated before the beta release. It's available for us with at least 1 year remaining on the account. Year of IVPN Pro. When you sign up, a temporary sign-up link is generated within the database. Once the MailX sign-up is complete, link and corresponding identifiers are removed from the database, and any association between MailX and the authenticated accounts. I urge them to ask me a couple of questions. My part of the new because I see that a lot with a lot of AdGuard, DuckDuckGo, Firefox. They have those email release services we can only apply. You can't initiate an email. Then you can with MailX. It's already available. It says that there's no correlation between the accounts, but you can manage them from your dashboard. There's a little tab you click on, it takes you to analytics.
Well, the last open source story it also kind of comes from IBM. Kind of a while ago, Portmaster was, if you guys missed this, you'll remember it, Portmaster used to be an open source firewall tool. It still is. SafeGate, who's the people who developed it, were essentially acquired by IBM, and so pretty much IBM took on the development for Portmaster. So Portmaster v2 has arrived. It doesn't introduce anything super flashy, but it brings foundational that pave the way for the future, essentially. Acquire a fresh install as they could. So if you are a Portmaster user, make going to get v2. So the key improvements are streamlined updates, better Linux support, particularly for immutable distros, and modern database engines. What's next is what I'm excited to see, and there's going to be a community survey in August, so keep an eye out for that. Portmaster v1 will remain available and supported for at least 6 more months, so there's still going to be a lot of time for you to try out v2, and this is going to give you a lot of leeway for that update.
They did say
definitely go check that out.
that is all of our posts. Now moving to this one. We have a handful this week. The first one comes from listeners. Thank you. This says bill tracking, increasing cash tracking worries, data protectionists. So this comes from Germany. And it says the portal has shed light on the comparatively recent phenomenon in a series of articles. The team also followed the life of a 20-year numbers are already being automatically recorded. According to the DPO for Schleswig-Holstein, Wisconsin, such companies, which police authorities in Bavaria and Thuringia already use to track down money laundering or terrorist financing in particular, not only poses risks for individuals. According to the inspector, it also looks bad for business secrets and such as information about security relevant people that intelligence services could be obtained. Hansen draws a comparison with printer IDs. Such yellow dots are also technical data that can be used to identify whistleblowers. She believes it is crucial that people have a truly anonymous payment option. After all, payment traces could reveal personal or intimate details such as diet, addictions, or love affairs. The Bundesbank itself points out that the protection of privacy is such as the right of people in Germany to informational self-determination. Although the bank itself tracks the path of certain banknotes on certain occasions, it decided against comprehensive processing of serial numbers in 2020. However, to accommodate investigators, it tested this option beforehand. The managing director of Elephant Castle IP wants to take efficient cash tracking in Germany to a new level. His company receives banknote serial numbers with time and place capture from cash in transit company and offers security authorities expert opinions based on this database. He claims that this is factual data that is not subject to data protection as no personal information is collected. The chairman of police unions and customs is also calling for comprehensive cash tracking and the merging of data from banks and cash in transit services for police and customs authorities. He wants to uncover contradictions in statements and, for example, track whether cash originates from crimes such as ATM break-ins. The expert will cash tracking and a private can be accessed online by various authorities. More than half of all which are usually easier to track are all the right. These are the hack seized phones and extract. Researchers are saying Chinese this new type of malware to extract text messages. Images, location histories, audio recordings, content. They use a software called M Assistant, and it extracts sources we've talked about, I guess, in the West. That hosts on forums where people complain about finding the malware installment or directions. It's to be planted on an unlocked device and works in tandem with the hardware. They couldn't analyze the desktop. Researchers find a version of the malware compatible devices. In an illustration on its website, it shows iPhones connected to its forensic hardware device, suggesting the company may have an iOS version designed to extract data from Apple devices. But police do not need sophisticated techniques to use it, such as using 0 days. The good news is that it's at least evidence of the compromise on the seized device, so you can actually identify and delete the malware, either because the hacking tool literally appears as an app on your phone, or it can be found and deleted using more sophisticated tools like the Android debug bridge, or ADBs, but you guys probably know that. The bad news is that at the time of installing, the damage is done and authorities already had the person's data.
It's worth knowing that there are other tools like this that had existed and still exist. Assistant is only one of a large number of spyware or malware made by Chinese surveillance tech makers in what they're calling a big ecosystem. The researcher said that the company tracks at least 15 different malware families in China, and there's a bit more information you can read in the show notes, but sadly there aren't super technical details as to like which devices this works on, if there's limitations, does it require the device to be unlocked? All these things are really hard to kind of figure out based on just what we hear from this story.
So this next story is just, it comes from 404. The headline says, a startup is selling data hacked from people's computers to debt collectors. So quoting the article, when your laptop is infected with info-stealing malware, it's not just hackers that might get you in a list of sites or services you created accounts on, potentially including some embarrassing ones. A private intelligence company run by a young founder is now taking that hacked data from what it says are more than 50 million computers and reselling it for profit to a wide range of different industries, including debt collectors, couples in divorce proceedings, and even companies looking to poach their virus customers. Called the practice deeply unethical, and in some cases, the company is also selling access to a subset of the data for inspecting victims' addresses. The activities of the company called Farmers shows a dramatic shift in the bevy of companies that collect and sell access to open source OSINT. Historically, OSINT has included things like public social media data. Now companies increasingly see data extracted from people's personal or corporate machines, not just to use in their own investigations, but to repackage and sell. This should also once your data is lost in a breach, you can't control what will happen to it. It can be used by law enforcement, advertisers, or anyone with access to it. It's a stark reminder of why you have.
The next one's pretty interesting. Fishers have found a way to downgrade, but not bypass FIDO multi-factor authentication, being fast identity online. It's the standard that your YubiKeys, if true, the attack reported in a blog post by security firm Expel would be huge, since FIDO is widely regarded as immune to credential phishing attacks. After analyzing the Expel write-up, I'm confident that the attack doesn't bypass FIDO protections, at least not in a sense that the word bypass is commonly used in security circles. Rather, the attack downgrades the MFA process to a weaker, non-FIDO-based process. As such, the attack is better described as a FIDO downgrade attack. Expel said the novel attack technique uses an email that links to a fake login page from Okta, which is an authentication provider. It prompts visitors to enter their valid username and password. The FIDO spec was designed to mitigate precisely these sorts of scenarios by providing an additional factor of authentication in the form of a security key. In the event there is no passkey on a device, being user can use a passkey for that site that's already resident on a different device with a phone. In these cases, the site being logged into will display a QR code. The user then scans the QR code with the phone, and the normal FIDO MFA process proceeds as normal. So, too long didn't read. The attackers become a man in the middle and trick the fake site into displaying the backup QR code instead of the more secure FIDO code. What Expel seems to have encountered is an attack that downgraded FIDO MFA with some weaker MFA4. Very likely, this weaker authentication was similar to those used to log into a Netflix or YouTube account on a TV with a phone. And assuming this was the case, the person who administered the organization's Okta login page would have had to deliberately choose to allow this fallback to a weaker form of MFA. As such, the attack is more accurately classified as a FIDO downgrade attack, not a bypass.
Our next story, hackers fooled Cognizant help desk, says Clorox in $380 million cyber attack lawsuit. So according to the complaint, from 2013 to 2023, Cognizant was contracted by Clorox to handle its IT operations. Cognizant provided the service desk that Clorox employees could contact when they needed password recovery or reset assistance. Cognizant's operation of the service desk came with a simple common sense requirement. Never reset anyone's, this is actually the complaint that they're quoting for the record. Simple common sense requirement, never reset anyone's credentials without properly authenticating them first. Clorox made this easy for Cognizant by providing them with straightforward procedures to follow whenever providing credential recovery or reset assistance. However, the complaint to employee 1. At no point did the agent follow Clorox's credentials, either the pre-2020 procedure or the January 2023 update. Before changing the criminal, the agent further reset one's MFA credentials multiple times without verification at all. And at no point did the agent send the required email to alert them of the password reset, according to Clorox. After allegedly failing to verify the caller's identity, Cognizant reset the credentials and multi-factor for Clorox's network. Matters worse, Clorox alleges that the threat actors used the same play for another employee who worked in IT security, which was done without verification once again. This reportedly gives privileged access to the network, which they used to spread to further the article. They actually have like screenshots of the chat logs, and assuming that that's the full section, like they're not wrong. It's yeah, no problem. I can do that for you. Okay, here's the new over the phone. I'm like, yeah, it's pretty wild. They got away with this. In addition, Cognizant's response to recovery support as overly incompetent, resulting in delays on compromised accounts and sending underqualified personnel. Go ahead and take the last story because it's literally like a headline. It says hacker sneaks info, and this was just a quick reminder to be cautious. I feel like we've covered, I want to say 3 Steam stories in the last couple of months, but it may even be more than that. So, okay, and that is it for the last 2 weeks, which I think we forgot to say up front. If we missed a week, it's been a long couple of weeks. A dating safety app has put users at horrible risk. Very nuanced story. A Microsoft Cloud vulnerability that is probably still tearing through the web. I feel sorry for any of you that work in IT. And Proton has released their AI chatbot. Check it out if you want. It's free. And much more. And now, Henry will tell you all about our sponsor.
Yes, so Entei, the way I've been presenting it to people is that it's Google Photos, but they can't see your photos. And it's also a way to essentially get end-to-end encryption without giving out much of the visibility and the features that even normies would expect. So it's a really good service to push people you know to. So you'll get albums, geotagging, AI features like facial recognition, and natural language search, which is all on device, and you have the option to use it. You can ignore all those features if you prefer no AI. Curated memories, phone widgets, and even folders. What's even better is like a really good way to use Entei in your life is that you can
It's free. It's free. We're giving you software. It's free. It's free for you, man. It's free software. Oh, you got to bring it. Free. 2 desktop environments, no block. It's free. You unlock your account to your free Linux. We got you the distro. It's open source software. It's free. It's got the kernel in the back. I'm carrying this around all day. It's your It's free OS. I'll pay my pants. Dude, it's a free OS. Dude, I got Does it get better than this? Dude, the OS is free. Dude, the OS is free. Free OS. It's free software. This is your brain. And this is Linux. And this is what happens to your brain after installing Arch Linux. Many celebrities throughout the years have used Linux. There's Annie Lennox, Arch, Bill Gates didn't use Linux like a Linux. And of course, most recently, there's PewDiePie, who was only able to make the switch after moving to the most technically advanced society in the world, and having enough money to never have to work again. So he can spend full time working on bringing up his boot menu, terminal commands, window management system, GNOME extension. Get well soon, mate. Oh, doctor, how is he? I'm sorry, he's very sick. Really? Yes. I'm afraid it's terminal. Oh, terminal, is it? Oh, pseudo get well soon. My God, he's made a full recovery. worried that your son is going to make some young lass pregnant? Shut up. Well, don't tell him to use condoms. Get him to use Linux. Linux. The world's number one contraceptive. You've got to give him a buttercup. This is not over yet. This is updating your repository. Configuring your BIOS. Accidentally wiping your drive. Linux. It doesn't just work with iPods. It works on iPods. Because why the hell? Just do it. What are you waiting for? Do it. And now if you finally get it all working. Just want to let you know, though I do make a bit of fun of Linux, I do actually use it a little bit. I've been testing out just to get a bit of Fedora. Thanks for watching. And I did edit all of this on a Mac because a few days ago, an account known as Nature Jab, headed by a guy named Julian Brown, who claims to be the innovator of microwave pyrolysis, basically creating gasoline or diesel out of plastic trash, apparently had went missing, ladies and gentlemen. Now, something I can tell you now is obviously we've all, as a theory, imagine ever messing around with any of these big mega like industry for cancer. Would Big Pharma be happy if you would take away their cash cow of treating this? Or would they absolutely favor it and just, big oil, the people that make billions of dollars every year, literally just by drilling up fossil fuel into our vehicles, would be okay if some guy came out and made to take your average plastic and turn it into good diesel. Well, that is the person we're looking at today. Nature Jab that I've been kind of like looking at. He's got followers, and really, he made a video where he was basically saying that people are after him. I think he's being followed.
I know, and that's put every day, every hour building, growing. Why am I out here working on this plastic in the fuel reactor I've been working on for 5 years since I was 17? Why am I out here in 100-degree weather? Why am I out here despite being arrested? Why am I out here despite weird black helicopters that turn off their radar transponder circling me 6 times at night? Why am I out here sleeping in my van, crazy humidity, mosquitoes, gnats flying in, and yet I still do it? Why am I out here despite having to drive 4 hours every time I want to work on this machine? Because when I was doing it in my parents' backyard, I blew myself up.
Yeah, there's a lot to process from this video, okay? So recently he's uploaded a couple of these videos, and, he's been talking about helicopters flying over, people also reporting him to the Internal Revenue Service and the Environmental Protection Agency. Actually, in his mind, be thinking that he's stepping on some pretty serious toes here. And aside for this, it really was an interesting rabbit hole to go down, because as this could topple this industry, an industry that is already being sort of like attacked by other big players like EVs and shit. What if this guy actually is making diesel fuel out of like trash? I mean, that could be a serious game changing thing.
All right, I can't go into too much detail. There is some very, very odd. I'm certainly under attack right now. Getting ways to just kind of have your eyes open. And there's
a lot going on. He actually really feels like he's being like gang stalked, tracked by these like big oil cartels. So let's get a closer look at his actual science and kind of start seeing like maybe he's onto something. Maybe if they're going this hard to track the guy down, let's actually see what he's made real quick. So Nature Jab for over here, this is his first world continuous solar microwave plastic to fuel fundraiser. And he's actually got like a little GoFundMe over here, which he's raised $30,932 on a 16K goal. So immediately I wanted to go over to his account. I went on YouTube with like 366,000 like subscribers. This is like actual reactor that he's doing this apparently since he was like 18. Like he's like a young inventor type fella. And again, this is like interesting to see. Apparently it all comes out in this really shitty goo, and then he like refines it into what appears to be. So there it is, man. It comes out, he's lighting it up on fire, and boom, it apparently seems to be just actual fuel, ladies and gentlemen. It's wild stuff. So he takes like obviously discarded shitty plastic, this reactor, and it uniformly like burns down this actual like plastic and allows him to like convert it into this. Now, obviously, this kind of technology and this kind of claim isn't really new. There's been alternative fuel sources that would absolutely, if true, destroy does lobby for their technologies around the world, right? So, for instance, one of the things you might have heard of was Stanley Meyer and his water-powered vehicle. So, for instance, this one buggy would run on like 22 gallons of like just tap water, and it would just like drive across. Like, according to this, Meyer claimed to have replaced the spark plugs with injectors that introduced a hydrogen-oxygen mixture into the engine cylinders. The water was subjected to an electrical resonance that disassociated it into its basic atomic makeup. The water fueled water into hydrogen and oxygen gas, which would then be combusted back into water vapor in a conventional internal combustion engine to produce net energy. So obviously the thing with this kind of technology is, people started to look into it, and scientists realized that obviously very quickly the first 2 laws were kind of attacked with this. Now, there was a lawsuit that came out of fraudulent after 2 investors who sold dealership offerings the right to do business with that technology sued him in '96. And so basically a bunch of experts started to look at it and said that his water fuel cell was later examined by 3 expert witnesses in court who found that there was nothing revolutionary about the cell at all, and that it was simply using conventional electrolysis. So while Myers is apparently dining at a restaurant with apparently 2 Belgian investors, he runs outside and goes, "They poisoned." And after an investigation, the coroner actually came out and said that he had high blood pressure and actually died of a cerebral aneurysm. Now, again, that's what the coroner report says. People who was
conspiracy actually think that, maybe he had something that was poison. Because if he invented this technology that would completely topple oil, that would change the course, that would destroy an economy, an entire industry that was thriving. So think about a fuel with microwave pyrolysis, diesel. They ended up taking it to a laboratory. Apparently, according to this laboratory and what he says is based on the actual graphs and the data, the diesel that he provided might be better than conventional diesel, or at least cleaner than actual. So it is obviously like he's going to the actual lab and as well with these guys. So I don't know. It might actually be for sure, especially considering that this is like a full laboratory. Just putting their own. They're putting their own basically by siding with them. So according to pyrolysis is basically breaking down like a plastic in the absence of like that liquid diesel that was basically produced. In just like the world of recycling, from my understanding. Where things do change is obviously Julian's usage of microwave pyrolysis, which again, this is where he heats it in a more like uniform fashion. And in his understanding, better efficiency. And it's better than like just standard pyrolysis for anybody that has no understanding of like how it was ever used. It was actually used at one point, and I researched this, and apparently the Nazis back in the days of World War II, when they had a lot of coal but not a lot of oil, they would take their massive abundance of coal, for instance, and effectively just like liquefy it through a process known as the Burgess process or the Fischer-Tropsch process. And through that, they would actually turn their coal into liquid fuel or some usable fuel that they could bring in for actual, applications. Now, the thing is, this was pyrolysis-built fuel, and it was absolutely inefficient. And not only was it inefficient, one of the things that came out of it was that it required a lot of energy to effectively produce just a little bit of fuel. But remember, at the time, the Nazis were at war. So it's better to expend a lot of your resources to produce that liquid gold you needed to possibly win the war, especially when you had such a massive abundance of that coal to begin with. Now, people in Julian's comment sections go out and ask, how much plastic does it take for a gallon? What's the waste from the process? How much energy is actually required? The problem that pyrolysis has is it's energy intensive. And if you don't have scrubbers on your stacks, it does release a lot of pollutants into the air. So this guy's been working on this method for years now. And one of the things that has always kind of shocked me a little bit is as he's doing this, there isn't really a lot of safety that I think he personally applies. I'm kind of hoping that, for his health, leaving in some of the worst chemicals known to man. I mean, this could be some serious, massive health down the road, especially if he's not being careful right now. When you look into the here, this is from blackenterprise.com. After that, plastic is made from crude oil and can be turned back into fuel. I decided to build a reactor, put in my welding experience to use. I saw a problem quickly and desperately. So I really do think that this guy is coming at this from realistic end. He's probably seen a lot of trash in the areas. And, obviously, if you have the trash problem, this guy is basically turning what people have thrown away into usable energy. And hopefully that can maybe make a cheaper energy solution for a lot of people who live in areas where, well, let's just be honest, gas is expensive in any capacity. So having gas made from trash doesn't so bad. So even they write over here that Ezra process is not without its drawbacks. While it produces a cleaner burning fuel, it's also a process that adds a lot of pollutants to the atmosphere. So obviously, like with anything, there's always a anti-accounting. For instance, Unnature Jab on Reddit writes, months ago, the use of microwave technology in chemical synthesis as well as scientific papers are published each year as supported by the results of the Web of Science search entitled Microwave Atomic Chemistry being used in organic synthesis and materials processing. I really feel like that's probably something that Professor Dave can probably break down in a much better manner. But the idea here is that the tech was patented in 1971, widely used and available, and there's nothing determined outside of how to make it more efficient, which there are companies who have been doing this for the last 40 years and use high vacuum and inert gases that will produce the amount of electricity needed to run the reactor. Nature just isn't even remotely close as to what is the current standard in doing this reaction. Wake the fuck up. And obviously people are like, yeah, it's real, but it's not efficient, even a little bit. And he exaggerates. And exactly what I was thinking, I've always wondered if this guy realizes just how much pollution he is creating thinking it's clean. I remember doing a really scaled down version of this when learning chemical cracking and extracting styrene from dry distillation of polystyrene. Looking at the MSDS of styrene, that shit is massive. The amount of benzene, styrene, box, dioxin, and other shit this guy is concentrating and releasing in the atmosphere is actually nuts. Which is one of the reasons why I think maybe the EPA was called into this, because it is the Environmental Protection Agency's job to make sure the environment is fucking protected. Again, you might disagree with that, but that's exactly why they would have been called. I don't know why the IRS so much, maybe to audit the GoFundMe. But yeah, obviously people have raised some valid concerns. It's a scam, it's not revolutionary, and my skepticism about it makes me think him showing any gasoline that's made from his process is a prop. Accusing that maybe the guy is just buying gasoline. People send this guy tons of money because they don't know better. I'll admit it's refined diesel and gasoline after pyrolysis. I might not think so negative. And I've understood the science here is actually well documented for decades. It's just a matter of it's not as good. It's not this end all be all that he's been shown. And this is one of the problems with TikTok conspiracy theories is immediately people started getting freaked out on the internet. They were like, where is this guy? Did Big Oil get it? Did they pop him in the head for possibly creating an energy source that they can't control? No, apparently he did disappear, and there were people who looked into the Atlanta police reports or police reports in his area just to see if there was possibly something of him being missing. And the thing is, there wasn't really anything. His mom actually ended up coming out and basically saying that he's actually fine. I can confirm Julian is safe, but in the best interest of his security, I'm not able to provide any information. It's still ending on a note where Big Dad's life is actually in danger. Who knows? And he has gone completely radio silent, right? Which is, again, super duper weird because he's been posting, he's gained a lot of traction, millions of plays on. Okay, is I would assume almost near finished project of pyrolysis. Sorry, and you can see this is what this is. So these are he's got plastic into this reactor. They uniformly heat this, and because it's microwave, it's supposed to. So even the people who are watching this are saying, bro, 8 kilowatts of power to make 5 gasoline. It's not necessarily about the gas, it's acid. But again, even if you're burning the plastic waste, I do absolutely ask what that's doing to the environment, right? There's a lot of questions to be asked. And it's a lot more complicated than one would think. Now, I'm sure for a lot of people, they could be like, well, the oil companies try to kill him. And the reality, are not going to kill a guy that's super duper popular. That's conspiracy theorist, the actual W. Now, what's actually more likely to happen over here before we end this video off is that it is more likely that the oil companies will probably find a way to acquire the actual product over here. But they pay a large sum of money, or they actual form of patent suppression, which has happened in the past, where they will just literally actually have patents. They'll probably bring up something they wrote fucking forever ago and use that to actually suppress this guy if he makes some serious progress. I mean, you can read from 9 years ago, companies like Exxon Mobil, for instance, did tons of technologies for things like low emission cars, first electric vehicles, which, granted, EV was not like Tesla, for instance. One of the first EVs, thousands, were things like the GM EV1 and, of course, the RAV4, which would use batteries, the NINH battery technology. Companies like Chevron, for instance, would use their actual stakes in companies like Codesys to limit access to those battery technologies, right? And of course, this would absolutely fuck over anyone that was trying to use this battery technology to pose a serious competition to that traditional gas-powered car. So, no, you don't kill somebody, okay? As long as you're use tools to basically serve the stuff going in your area, and people will just be fighting over legal battles, millions of dollars. It's just like that in the country. Plastiline, then color me shocked. I would be excited to see it. Okay, something like burning energy that is taking away the plastic. Something anybody wants to see, but is it done here?
Morning.
The idea is Mr. Jab is saying. Well, ladies and gentlemen, this is the weirdest time, and whether those black helicopters are real or big oil is tracking them down, this has been an interesting scientific rabbit hole to go down. Ladies and gentlemen, if you like yourself, please like, comment, subscribe, just like ah.
Just see on the left.
Yeah, just one bus. Right. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a great day.
You too.
$6. $6. What the fuck? I feel sorry about it right now. $6. Not fun. Just want to see what turn in hell, motherfucker.
That we have to make an online service that we have to make content. Wow.
New message from Chris. I am just on Hamilton Street. New message from Chris. Do you want me to walk around to you?
You know how you want to? Fuck off. So no. See you later. That's where I want to fuck off. $6. Going home. Fuck this shit.
So you're telling me that we're now selling something that isn't a product that we have to make or an online service that we have to make content for? Wow. Give that man a promotion. Oh, hi there. I'm Sam Tucker from the company about that our headquarters is actually one of the zeros account. And you may have heard recently, you give us money each month, and in return, let me explain. You see, in this sad economy, people aren't buying as much of Apple's new stuff anymore. And so we took our most talented and innovative designers and said, if people won't buy new products, then how can we make them pay more for the products they've already bought? And so introducing the all-new Apple Care One, or what I call the insurance. That's right, an exciting new coverage that brings Tim's other exciting features, such as Apple Cash, where you give Apple money, just sit there in your account, and the Apple Card, where you give Apple money plus interest. The CEO really thought different. You know, Tim, he's less of a storyteller. Anyway, let's have a look at some of the benefits. With Apple Care One, you're able to cover up to 3 of your existing devices. In case one low is relative, $20 a month is more expensive than every other Apple service. You also get unlimited repairs for accidents like drops or spills. Notice there it says unlimited repairs, not free repairs. So I guess it technically is limited to how much money you got left. And we will replace your device or stolen if, again, you pay us a deductible, which is a legal term meaning no money. So you see, you're paying us a monthly fee to know that it does happen. You can come in and look at that, an extra $240. We didn't even have to invent a new shiny product. Incredible work by our Apple mathematicians on this one. Effort, profit. The all-new Apple doesn't care plan. For Book Air, we now just sell air. Guys, I divided by 0, but I still got profit. Can we sell this? Thanks for watching the video, everyone. And remember, click like, fun tech news, and parody videos. And, excuse me, I think I had too much profit for lunch. Oof. So you're telling me that we're now... Get out.
Good day. We are cooks. Morning, international. And here we are. Thank you. Have a good day. Shit, fuck, shit, fuck. Deal with it. I mean, good luck with now. Good luck with that. Wildy. So,
I'm leaving the US regardless of whether or not we reach parity or not, because the direction that the US is going for the foreseeable future, for the next 5 to 10 years, the direction the US is going does not maximize the opportunities for my children. There's going to be more legislation, more bureaucracy, more laws,
no matter
more
where you go.
economic uncertainty, inflation, like everything, and more conflict in government. We're not going to figure out who our president is in November. We're going to argue about it for another 4 years. And then there's going to be an even more dramatic election 4 years from now that's going to result in 4 more years of arguing. I have an 11-year-old son right now. In 8 years, he'll be 19, right? I have a 6-year-old daughter right now. In 8 years, she's going to be 14. States. The United States that dictates what dictates when they have to register for selective service. The U.S. dictates, it's like there's tons of rules that they fall under that come before opportunity. That's not what we used to be. That's what we've become, and that's what we stand to see in the future. I can take our American passport and be an American citizen, pay American taxes, be proud to be an American. I am very proud to be a 44-year-old American. I am not so proud to be an American father of a 6-year-old child and an 11-year-old child. Because the America that I fought for when I was in the military, the America I was willing to die for at CIA is not the America that exists today. We're in middle school. Remember middle school? How much did you like middle school?
Not much.
Nobody liked middle school. We're forgetting that as a country, we're young. Like we just got out of the elementary school years where everything was easy and everything was fun and we got nap time and we got like treats and playground time, right? Now we're getting into middle school where there's people that want to put us in a closet and give us a wedgie. Yeah, right? I don't feel like I have to be here while the rest of the country goes through middle school.
So it sounds like it's economic runaway, like all the problems we know about with the debt, which is impossible to solve, right? And just inflation that's going to keep going up, coupled with political, like more and more political. Those are the reasons. And that's a less pleasant place to be. Like,
so if you're trying to grow a future leader of the world, if you're trying to future succeeding citizen of the world, not necessarily, you going to stay in like the messy place, your seed into a sandy plant bed? No. When I take my children American passport with a company that's tied to making American dollars, we're a global company. Like I love America. I serve America first. I don't have to serve America from within the United States. Some people are forced by the nature of their business to serve or the nature of their job. They have to stay inside the United States. I don't. I can take my kids to, let's just say, a country like Portugal. Portugal is a European ally to the United States. It's got its own problems, but its problems are not like the ones here. And by having a U.S. passport and having U.S. dollars, it gets you above almost all the problems that exist there, right? Romania is another example of that. If you have $100 in Romania, you can basically get anything done overnight. Here in the United States, I tried to get my license, my driver's license in Colorado. I am a military veteran. I am a CIA veteran. When I went to the DMV, I didn't have the right paperwork to prove my military background. I was like, here's my Florida license that says I'm a veteran. Here's the internet that says I'm an American. Here's my digital record from the military that says that I'm a veteran. And they were like, well, you didn't fill out this specific form that's required for us to do it. So we're going to issue you a license that does not recognize your veteran status. When you get that document complete, come back and we'll do this whole thing again.
Sweet. So
it's inconvenient, it's inefficient, and why would I voluntarily put my child or put my children through force and I know it can be avoided?
So I guess China's growth and competition, what does Russia's basically autonomy, like they're breaking out and saying we will not run over by America. What does that have to do with the situation in America?
It has situation in America, the social reality are separate from the foreign policy issues. When they are impacted negatively twice as much. So, for example, right, inside the United States, we have this very understanding now of injustice, right? Black lives matter, people get pass in the judicial system because they're friends with them. We have a convicted felon who's running for president and has a very, very good chance of winning.
Right. And Biden's kid's a felon now. It's like, I'm thinking about running for office. I'm like, everything is on the table now.
But that's the reality of what we're looking at, right? So socially, that's what we see internally. Externally, what happens is that's what the rest of the world sees too.
Right.
And all these people who have years that democracy is equality and democracy is going to change the world and democracy is what you want. Now you got African warlords that are like, I'm really glad I stayed as a warlord.
Right. Nobody believes America. Nobody believes in America anymore.
So Americans believe in America, and we want to get it back, especially those of us who served in uniform or served part of our life. The American dream alive, and the American dream is very much alive. You and I know that they are actually quite a bit smaller now than they were 30 years ago. If we stay course, we could eradicate these problems. Right? We could correct our judicial system if we just fund it and stayed focused on it for 15 or 20 years. It's not going to happen overnight. Could now what's happening is because the rest of the world doesn't believe in us, we've got influence, we're losing revenue, we're losing market. Doesn't work. Authoritarian. Russia. Yeah. And guess what? It looks right now. Russia's on the rise. China's on the rise. North Korea's on the rise. Yeah. Netanyahu, who runs a democracy, is acting more like a dictator right now than an elected. The whole world is doing what? Watching. Yeah. So what would you do, dude, if you Indonesia? What would you do if you were in charge of Kenya?
Get those in a foot.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. The world's police officer.
Yeah, and I know I'm such a Portland, Oregon liberal. I'm like, but isn't it better? There's a new study that says it's actually if more people have equal amounts of nuclear weapons because that's it. Clearly I agree with you. I don't think anybody more because the standard of living compared to 100 years ago, everybody's prospering way more from mutual trade. Can't remember my question.
Well, that's the security. Is exactly that. When everybody has the same amount of arms or dogs, their house, and nobody breaks into anybody else's house, that doesn't mean that people rest well. Is at financial success, and it also doesn't mean one house help, other houses don't. Anything. They're like, oh, I heard Joe's awesome. That means Joe's going to be distracted for the next few weeks. I wonder if that's enough chance for me to file a claim so I can get 15 extra, 15 into his yard with my fence.
Right.
That's the kind of stuff that the world, that's not right. Geopolitics is just the same that happens in your HOA on a national, on an international level.
So governments act like human beings in of themselves first. When they see it, if they see weakness,
that's the depth, right? So I think it's great that you're highlighting this. Collections of individuals act like individuals. You've heard of mass hysteria and mob mentality. What does that mean? All it's saying is that groups of people act like a single organism.
New message from Kristen. This is not me.
Meaning that you define the terms of a government. What you are doing is you are identifying the U.S. federal government as an entity. Even in the United States, a company is an entity, of course, right? A person is an entity, a company is an entity. So when you get to the highest levels of the national government, right? When you think like...
New message from Kristen. Incorrect mobile given mobile is 0425 210 605.
Can you let the American government die and still save America? That's the huge difference. The government doesn't need you to keep itself safe. So everybody who thinks that the government's there to protect them or take care of them, no. The government is not...
New message from Kristen. Not correct.
About you. Big Brother cares about you. The federal government is more like your boss. It only is as invested in you as the GDP you create. And as soon as you stop serving the government, it could give two fucks about you. Which is why everybody's worried about Medicare and Medicaid and Social Security, except the government.
Well, that's because we have the world reserve currency. Countries can't do that. They have on their debt. They have to raise taxes. There's a whole discussion about could be like a savior. Again, would solve a lot of these problems. Well, let's put that aside for a second. What I think are not an idealist, but I think not a doomsday as you come off. I'm not. For sure, I'm not. The nature of what people project on me from the viral clips, clickbait, yeah, the viral clips that other people, yeah, right? Because you're totally right. I don't think the end is nigh. I think a long period of discomfort is coming up, and we all have to decide whether or not we're going to try to dedicate our lives to fighting through that discomfort, fixing that discomfort, avoiding that discomfort. Like, it's up to us to decide. It's kind of like, so when I have a cold, when I have the flu, I have a fever, I'm one of those weird people that doesn't want to take Tylenol and aspirin. I have a headache. I want to keep feeling bad. It's going to be 2 or 3 days, but why would I take Tylenol? It's only going to make me feel better for 4 or 6 hours. And then I'm going to feel like, again, I'd rather just feel shit all the time. So then when my fever breaks, I know I'm better. Yeah. Going into right now for the next decade or so? I don't know. That's what money printing is. It's, man, this debt of yours. That's also what you're seeing with impeach this president. We're going to impeach that president. We're going to create an investigation of that president. We're going to investigate that president. Okay, now that's what. Let's talk about the worst. Do you see something that's plausible now in the modern age? Do you Donald Trump going and getting old school where he takes office if he gets elected? No, well, I mean, I'm not saying I don't see Kennedy getting hit. I'm saying I don't see. You don't. Correct. I don't see Donald Trump doing it. I don't see the federal government trying to organize Donald Trump to do it like that. But here's one of the things that I think is so important about the next election. 3 outcomes. 3 outcomes. All are really unprecedented in American history. All of them. We elect a convicted felon. I agree. He was only convicted in New York, and there was onlyness around it. Blah, blah, blah. I get it. Don't disagree with any of it. However, end of the day, it's elected. Yeah. Option 2, Joe Biden gets elected. Joe Biden clearly has age issues, very clearly has mental, very clearly has, like, his age and his abilities will impact his presidency. Clear. I don't think he's running the government. That's unprecedented. Yeah. Unprecedented, yeah. Like, electing somebody who's mentally efficient? Crazy. What's the third option? The third option is one of the two of those. One of the women that we're talking about, something completely on the right eve of the election, Joe Biden or Donald Trump gets into a car accident because he's autocade or whatever, gets intercepted by some crazy person. Who knows what, right? Or Trump is elected and there's another riot and then whatever else. Like, there's something crazy, so crazy we can already assume it will be unprecedented. So in all scenarios, the outcome of the election this year is unprecedented. That means the rest of the world watches absolute buffoonery happen in the United States. That's how they're going to see it. Now, and we just watched a very calm re-election of Putin. Yeah. We watched of Xi Jinping. Yeah. Right? There is no such thing as an election in North Korea. No. The Ayatollah is in Iran is already talking about how unpredictable and unstable the West is, and saying, why would anybody want to participate in something so unstable and unpredictable? Right.
Boss,
to spot people who are lying.
There's some, and I'll give you a couple of those, but I think it's the biggest mistake I ever made in my life was spending 10 years learning all of those indicators. I built a periodic table of this stuff, which you can see. And so when it comes to these indicators, those are important. What's really important is being good at detecting change. So the conversation starts normally, where you're from, what do you do, some basic information I'm getting out of this person. And then we get to the harder questions, and I'm looking for changes to their behavior. Are they answering questions the same way that they were a few minutes ago? Are their eyes moving the same way? Are their fingers doing the same thing? Are they breathing at the same speed? So looking for changes is then knowing what behavior you should. So if I see a big pile of change, I can be certain that this person is being deceptive without even really seeing. So getting good at changes is the thing. Then understanding context and culture. So context meaning like, oh, the person is crossing their arms, it must be defensive. Well, what if it's freezing cold? So there's context. Then understanding context in clusters. I'm going to look for somebody says where they touch their face, they're lying, looked away for a minute, lying. One behavior never indicates deception. You should always see a cluster of behavior. Sometimes someone's lying and those behaviors aren't there. They're just not there. Those are mistakes. Are you good enough to ask questions to raise the stakes? So if I give you a picture of a duck right now and tell you, convince this person over here that you are looking at a picture of a but if I do that, I'm going to put a bullet in your head. Same situation. And so the word deception are increased. Is that we might increase stakes to something as simple as me saying, we're going to like you, and I don't want you to I want you to answer this question. You understand? Now the stakes go up. I just pumped up your body language with just a little.
Be more sensitive to any sort of deceptive. Yeah.
Before the question is innocent, your brain's not going to get brain. So if the murder takes place, you know you're not the killer. You're going to be like, yeah, okay. That causes you any stress. It's just like deception. It's not just about behavior. It's about, can you ask good questions?
But a psychic and
one of the best questions in the world is called a bait question. And is where, let's say, a crime $50 was stolen from a grocery store. So, you did, say you did it. And I might say, William, is there any reason that you can think of that a video showed up from a black and white camera, maybe a security camera, showed that you took some money? You knew there were no video cameras. You say, you'd be comfortable, right? Make it more vague. Say, or is there any reason that somebody saw your car parked outside that store? That, and you don't know how many people I've talked to. And the only time I get nervous is if you were there. True. You know that if you're going to commit to lying and I'm about to slam, that bait question is so important. And the second way to do it, the win is there any reason blah, blah, blah might have happened. So if you've never this evidence ever,
it's a hypothetical.
We would have told one of our officers and one of our investigators that they saw you parked outside of that house. They saw you at around 9:15 p.m. And so the more vague, the better.
So how would you use that? You said with kids. How would you use that with completely different contexts in like an everyday life?
Oh,
Or you have kids. What lies do kids? I gave my parents heart attacks growing up. And at times, that was just always there. It wasn't me. I didn't do it.
so one thing, is there any reason somebody would have seen you? Is there any reason someone would say that you might be? Is great for kids. That is called the punishment question. And this is what happened to the person that did this. And so this has been used in my life, talking to predators. And these are people that prey on children. And I would say, well, what do you think should happen to the person that did this? And the answer is always some kind of like ridiculous. And
Ridiculous.
they'll say things like, well, obviously that person's sick, and counseling, therapy. And kids, I used this before. So when I was in the military, I come home in my uniform one day, like the little you're walking in, and there's a little box of chocolate milk open, and it's just laying on its side. All this chocolate milk is just like an idiot. It was kids, and two kids, Charlotte and William, are in there. They're probably more. And I was like, who? Not supposed to have milk in here, just water. And they're like, I don't know. Look at my son. I don't know. I'm like, all right. Charlotte, Andrew, William.
Separated.
I went to Charlotte first. I said, Charlotte, what should I do? The person that spilled this milk on the floor. She said, spankings, no more Xbox, no electronics, can't go outside, can't play with friends. Okay, all right. I go over to William. I say, William, put milk on the floor. And he goes, no more chocolate milk in the living room. And what's funny is, like, it's funny that kids do this, but adults react the same way to that question.
Because it's emotional, right? I imagine if I'm trying to play it in my head, I'm like, what would be happening? Because if I did it, I have images of it happening. Like, so I'm playing it out of my head, and if I'm focusing on it, I feel it. And now, if you're raising the stakes, being like, what should happen? Now I'm visualizing if I get caught for my punishment, it's gonna make me. I'm freaking out.
Yeah, like, no. What if they do what they say that they're going to do?
Yeah.
What if they do what I said? And so that's the bait question, the punishment question. Those are really good.
That's killer.
And really getting to the truth is when we get down into like the ways to get a confession out.
Box.
When you look at a pyramid dead on, you just think it's a triangle. It's not until you start to turn it that you realize there's so much more to it. It's a three-dimensional object. It's a pyramid. There's not.
That's true. Crazy, dude. Bad bonus. It's you kidnap. Torture. Today's the way to save. Oh, dude. Another one. Gonna she is wild. Closing loop test. Closing loop. Oh. Please. Need to write all these reports. $6 a trip, dude. That is horrible. Sorry. Uber. So, proof for card. Dude, well, if I have to look for instead of for. Correct. This in. Let's go Vikings. Let's go Vikings.
Hey, 42, the man playing a slot machine. He falls a lever and the almost offensively set perform their hypnotic dance. If by chance he hits a winning combo, it isn't just a machine that lights up. Deep on erupts as the nuclear succumbence reward center lights up like his own personal Las Vegas. The man can't quite explain why, but he feels good. So good that he wants to do it again. So he pulls the lever, but this time he's not so lucky. Feeling dejected, he retrieves his phone from his pocket and pulls down to refresh the Instagram feed. Something new pops up, and there's that sneaky little feeling again. He glances at his WhatsApp, hoping to see that have played that small red circle in the tail of the dragon. This man has been duped by dopamine. Just punters are always seeking more. More likes, more comments, more views, more messages of dopamine. But started trying to beat the house, adopting by the rules of the casino because they have welcome to the very new and very strange increasingly committing to a life with no phones, no email, no talking, no food, and no fun whatsoever. What is it all for? That's a very good question. But first, let's dive into dopamine. Because as you learn more about the pleasure chemical, you begin to realize that maybe, just maybe, there is something behind this news. The common instant action reward system. But it's kind of the opposite. Dopamine is a reward prediction system. And I know that sounds rather by step. It all starts with anticipation. You're a little bit peckish when suddenly donuts juices your nostrils. You turn to see one of those fairground-style donut vans parked up. And before you even take one step towards it, your dopamine system is already hard at work trying to predict the future. Dopamine starts to be released in your nucleus accumbens. You have actually received any gratification until a few minutes off purchase the donut, let alone biting it. Your brain is already predicting what that will feel like, and it will dopamine if it expects that donut to be extra tasty. So you walk over and buy a freshly fried sugar-coated donuts. You have those little things taste so, but whilst you eat them, your brain is carefully making notes. If that donut happens to be better than expected, if you bite into a pillowy, warm, satisfying donut, then your dopamine levels will peak, surging higher than any previous donut experience. Congratulations, you have just set a new benchmark, a new high tide watermark for your dopamine system, at least when it comes to predicting donuts. However, if the donuts turn out to be worse than your dopamine system anticipated, if they're a little bit stale and sad, for example, then your dopamine system will make a permanent adjustment. So, in the future, it will predict donuts to be less rewarding. This is what's known as prediction error. Your brain makes a prediction, and then it monitors the result and corrects the error. This means that dopamine rewards are not fixed throughout. They fluctuate depending on what you do, how often you do it, and how rewarding you feel each time you do it. Your brain is constantly recalibrating itself, and that's really important. The dopamine system evolved in this way for a reason. Our early ancestors' world of rampant unpredictability. Trees that bear fruit one day do not the next. Fruit that was tasty is now bitter. That's all warm and welcoming. If our dopamine system was rigid and unable to adapt, we might have found ourselves much too eager and willing to eat poisonous food and to approach enemies without due care. In short, it wouldn't last very long. It's also important that our brains try to predict dopamine in advance, because this feeling of, if I do that, it will feel good, and if I do that other thing, it will feel less good. It's a vital decision-making mechanism in the Homo sapiens toolbox. Working on this channel for over 10 years, most days by myself. At times, it has felt lonely. I'm solved that loneliness by turning to devices for that. So recently, I've been trying out meditation to just unwind without any distractions. And honestly, it's been really helping me. I just put my phone on silent and use Headspace to guide me through meditation. Whether you need support as you navigate life events, handle daily life moments, or becoming the best version of yourself, Headspace can help. Headspace are here to help you manage your stress through personalized recommendations, guided meditations, and exercises. Headspace has really helped me to unwind and keep away from quick and cheap things. And I'm not alone.
How are you doing? See where that is, isn't it? So international, same 20 minutes. For Tuesday? Yeah. It's getting tsunamis too. The world is going crazy. Tsunami in Japan and Hawaii. Russia. so part of the world. You know, the world we know is not the world we used to know. Now the world is different. The psychological world. It was a air pretty crazy. I wouldn't be surprised if it's man-made. It's like man-made too. We call this mess. I like to do jokes, but it's true. It happened. That's why it's funny because
And all of this is exactly why dopamine is the hot new fad. High earning types for whom there is neurological prison and unshackling themselves easy but unfulfilling dopamine millions to their salary because after doing their dopamine companies moving in the direction of genuine, at least that's the idea. Now, they do probably imagine simple prescriptions such as this trend where human levels of abstinence. Everyone knows they dopamine fast, but the main tenets are, and I mean no, just like a traditional fast. It is of course pleasure. Even the promise of food in anticipation. So strict adherence will typically avoid advertisements or glancing at fast food menus on the same. Most obviously, during the dopamine detox, but practitioners actually insist on a full video app that makes no computers, no TVs, no screens, any detoxers email autoresponder and totally ignore emails for the duration of their detox, which I can only presume reads something like, "Hi, I can't answer right now. I'm doing that pretentious thing again where I pretend it don't exist for a few days because I live in California." The most extreme practitioners will also ban themselves from all social contact. They won't converse with another human being for the duration of their fast. Some even go as far as to avoid making eye contact with other humans because eye contact releases dopamine. Exercise is also prohibited, as well as other kinds of vigorous physical activity. It's a little bit silly, to be honest, and you're probably thinking, nobody else does any of this apart from a few Silicon Valley nutters. Well, that's undeniably true, but it is a fast-growing trend within a very small circle of people. Jack Dorsey, Twitter's co-founder, was one of the original dopamine detoxers. He would regularly send himself to what I imagine were vastly overpriced meditation retreats, where he wouldn't interact with others or technology or eat any food for the duration of his stay. But I didn't make this video to yap about some Silicon Valley fanatics. These people might be taking things to the extreme. And to give them some credit, it's a level of abstention that, if we're honest with ourselves, 99% of us could never stick to for more than a few hours. But there are some really important lessons here that us, unwashed folk, can learn from them. And maybe we can implement small snippets of their fasting system into our own lives to greatly improve our overall wellness and happiness. Because after all, who doesn't want to do that? And a great place to start is with what is probably the easiest win of all. Simply moving your phone to a different room whilst you're working. I know that sounds stupidly simple, but you'll be shocked at what this does to your brain. A few years ago, a paper was released with the intriguing title, Brain Drain. The mere presence of one's own smartphone reduces available cognitive capacity. A bold statement. And in the study, 521 graduates were split into 3 groups and asked to investigate their memory and fluid intelligence. The first group all had their phones placed next to them right on the desk. The second group placed their phones in their bags. And the third group put their phones in a different room entirely. And the results were astounding. Those with their phones on their desks were getting worse at all tasks than the other 2 groups. The best results came from the group who had their phones in a different room, proving that even if your phone isn't in view, having it in your bag or pocket is damaging to your cognitive capacity. In short, the phones on their desks were roughly 15% dumber and slower when doing tasks than those who put their phones in a different room. And it didn't even matter whether the phones were on silent off altogether. Just the sight of a phone is like a clarion call to the owner. Having your phone near you causes your brain to constantly anticipate a potential dopamine reward from a phone notification or other interaction. This anticipatory system is still whirring away even whilst your phone is turned off. According to the handful of studies we've done, the general consensus is that simply having your phone on your desk or around you costs you roughly the same amount of mental energy as a bad night's sleep. Now, before I leave you, if there's one thing that you remember from this video, let it be this. A reward you might get is far more motivating than one you're guaranteed to get. American behaviorist B.F. Skinner proved this 70 odd years ago when he set pigeons pecking levers for feed pellets. But the pellets were set to be delivered not predictably, but on an intermittent and variable ratio schedule. In other words, they knew they'd get a reward, they just didn't know when. It's the exact same maths that powers slot machines, by the way. The birds pecked feverishly, even through long, dry spells, because they knew that eventually they'd receive a payout, and their dopamine system would eventually be paid off with a reward. It's so powerful that multiple psychologists have noted that variable ratio rewards create the most extinction-proof behavior in a species. Make of that what you will, but variable ratio is certainly enough to power multi-billion-dollar casinos. Experiment in 1954, electrodes were wired directly into a rat's pleasure circuit. Then they were given a lever that would randomly but predictably deliver jolts of dopamine when pressed, kind of like a slot machine. One of the rats pressed the lever 7,000 times an hour, ignoring the need to eat food or drink water. My point is this: today there are so many things for attention, and your phone and other devices are programmed with variable ratio rewards. Instagram to Tinder are batched shuffle, or with just enough to keep the odds somewhat fuzzy. So, whether you need to dive headfirst, dopamine detox, or just move your phone elsewhere for a few hours each day, it doesn't matter. What's most important is that you find a way to ensure this, and the rewards it receives, fulfilling and productive, such as if you're friends or enjoying a hearty meal with your family, instead of vital brain candy. I know it's easier said. If you try, the science shows that over time, your dopamine system will, and you will start to enjoy it just that little bit more. Furthermore, your dopamine compass will begin pointing you towards fruitful and productive endeavors again, rather than urging you every day to play the same game awaiting you behind you. Thanks for watching. Just before I go, remember a large life event at the moment, and you feel like you're being overburdened with stress, I encourage you to try Headspace, because it truly helped me to find inner peace and serenity amongst the chaos. Sign up for a free 60-day Headspace trial.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what's the You were listening to Headspace? No, it's just random videos that. It's a good video. Yeah, it's good to control the dopamine. Otherwise, the dopamine controls you. Yeah, I like the rat one. But the unfortunate part is all these videos are delivered through the cell phone. That's a high irony here. Yeah. It's true. Yeah. Just just around. Like this guy leave. Traveling far away. It's not super close, but this guy's not leaving. Now he leaves. Leave. That's okay. People have sleep. This is actually this spot. Like, there you go. Thank you, brother. Okay. Coming. Inspector Gadget. That's fun. Oh no. Oh no.